All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Weird to 280 Advanced Imaging. So the idea of this course is actually to understand how can we use digital photography and merge it with photo editing manipulation. So before we jump into this course overview, I just want to sort of talk about the foundation. So the foundation of this course is built upon the assumption that people in this class know basics of digital photography. That is, how do you operate a digital single lens reflex camera, that is commonly known as a DSLR camera, or sometimes also today there is a mirrorless camera. So the idea is that, do we know how to operate in manual mode? So a digital camera generally have multiple modes. It has an auto mode, which allows the user it allows users to actually relinquish a lot of control to the artificial intelligence of the camera that sort of decides and thinks for you. That's why a lot of folks, I'm assuming a lot of people who have taken VA 180 or a similar photography course are taking 280. But let's say if you are someone who don't really have any experience with digital photography, then VA 280 might be a bit of a struggle for you. So that's why the first week is sort of concentrated about retrospective of what we did in 180, that is going over basics of photography in a way that's really essential for this course. Now, the second part of this course is digital photo manipulation. And again, I'm assuming that a lot of you have some experiences with basic photo editing softwares. In this course, particularly, we would be using Lightroom Classic. That's the software, that's my go to software that I teach in VA 180 for any sort of photo editing for the photos that we're clicking. And then obviously there is Photoshop. That's literally one of the most famous and popular photo manipulation software in the world. So Photoshop is something that's very, I feel it's a software that just literally every every instructor or every creative professional, they use it in a way to tweak their work. So you could be a graphic designer, you could just be a casual photographer, or just a person who likes to sort of manipulate it for their own personal use. Photoshop is such a great tool. But anyhow, for a course that I often teach, that's MEDA 110, that is actually a Photoshop dedicated to Photoshop, and I'm assuming some of you might have taken it or some a similar course like that. But if not, the idea is that how can you merge photography and Photoshop together so that you can actually create photo art and media art. So maybe a lot of you have some experiences visiting gallery spaces, looking at photo exhibit, even online or in person. You might have noticed that how photographers just don't take a photo and print it out and just put it on display. What they do is they take a photo and they manipulate it depending on the idea that they want to project, or maybe a conceptual thematic piece that they're working on. So, for example, one of my long time running series that I exhibit yearly is Where is Home? So, what I do is I respond to the idea of home as a space, as an idea, as an abstract concept, and I work with a lot of students where they're open to interpretation, and a lot of them use Photoshop manipulation. They take photos, but they collage it in. They create a thematic piece based on very personal ideas that they're working with. All right, enough sort of yapping about sort of the foundations of 180 and MEDA 110. But what I really want to concentrate is what can you expect in this course. So it's a quick overview video, but yes, first week is about retrospective 180 and MEDA 110. We'll be focusing on giving you guys a recap. Even though you have taken 180 and MEDA 110 course, I think it's amazing to just have a retrospective before we jump into very, I wouldn't say advanced, but I would say intermediate sort of photo manipulation. So we are moving from basic digital photography to an intermediate state from 180 to 80. It means that 180 was literally about the basics of photography, and now we are moving to an intermediate state. There is an advanced stage as well, and that's something. It's, if you're really like wanna really take photography as a career choice, then you move into that. But intermediate sit is a great way for any creative development, whatever path you may choose. All right, so in this stage, the idea is about ways of seeing, curating moments, finding composition in the lot of like very basic and mundane things that we see around life. Again, is just the philosophy, art, and obviously image manipulation using software to create photo-based art and media art. So the idea is that we want to use, sorry about that, we want to use photo manipulation softwares and our basic knowledge of photography to create photo art and media art that can be exhibited in spaces. All right, two simple images, as you can see. So let's dissect the components here. So as you can see in the image to my left, where there's like a crayon or a pen or pencil, yeah, I think it's a crayon. And then there are all these graphics. And then there's a white backdrop. So when I ask folks, how do we create something like this? And the answers are pretty much on the nail that they get it, but sometimes people are sort of confused about them. So let me just like go through all the layers, and then there's another image of a person using their phone or an iPad, and then there's a bunch of emojis. All these all these images are often used by advertisers and for different industries for messaging. How do we create that? So definitely you need a photographer to take really high quality photos, but then you also need some knowledge of graphic designing and photo manipulation to actually create this messaging. As you can see, there is a background fill layer, that's your white backdrop. There is this main subject layer, and then there is an artist you're working with who actually doodles and draws this for you, and then you combine all of them on Photoshop, remove the backdrop, and then create this messaging. And as you can, sorry, my bad. And as you can see, the emojis here, maybe let's say you can just go over the internet and find a free stock image, and then you can add this to your messaging, and then you have a cohesive media art piece. All right, so when we talk about Photoshop, using Photoshop to create media art, we will learn layer workflow. We will learn object selection tool and layer mask using adjustment layers, adding embedded images and blending modes. Now, we would be now discussing this, how we can do that in the way that you're taking photos, and then you can use Photoshop to create. So we'll do a very simple MEDA 110 retrospective exercise to sort of get to know how to work around the Photoshop layout. Before we jump into our first Photoshop tutorial, I just want to like have a quick look at some of the images and just to show what are the other things that we will be doing with creating photo art. Now, we're moving from media art to photo art. Photo art is mostly about how can we use the photos that were taken by manipulating on Lightroom through effects and even on Photoshop as well. But this time it's not about using a lot of stock assets, but it's more about using an idea and concept and then sort of executing it. So looking at this image, let me ask you, is this a single image or is this a collection of 3 images? It could be just like a wide shot of 3 of this wooden structure, whatever that is, or as I think is just 3 images collaged in together. Now, the sequence of 3 images together is known as a triptych, and triptych is something that we will be working with in this course. But with the triptych, the idea is to tell a story. As you can see with this collection of 3 images, this sort of like bloody gory image here in this, there's this person in action. Now, as you can see with this collection of 3 images, you can sort of track what's happening, right? There is this action, but you also get a story. So you need like collection of 3 images. And why do we choose 3 images? We can use 4 images, 2 images, and people do that. But triptych is such a classic way of documenting photo art. And one of the logical ideas that I've heard, and this makes sense, is that a film structure or a narrative or a storytelling structure always have a beginning, middle, and an end. So that's why it's very psychologically wired for us human beings to sort of follow a narrative where it's about beginning, middle, and end. So that's why a triptych. Triptych can be very fun, and we'll work with them. Again, take a photo, 3 collection of photos with an idea, and then going on Photoshop, you can sort of create a sort of a stack layer. So triptych, different triptychs telling different moods. You can interpret triptychs and create really interesting ideas, whatever makes sense to you. Alrighty, now we're going to talk about the concept of negative space. and this is something we'll be sort of also building upon. So the Japanese have a word, ma, for the interval which gives shapes to the whole. So this sort of interval or emptiness is very significant to a lot of Japanese philosophy, and also in photography this is known as negative space, also in design. So Japanese sort of philosophy, I've at least felt that has very prominent in my research about negative space, and also a lot of Scandinavian cultures have negative space influences, but in photography it's actually giving room to tell a story, to actually feel spaciousness, as you can see in this photo by Serge Najar. And negative space, this is one of my absolute favorite photos. When you talk about negative space, it's so coherent, it's so cohesive, it has so much space, and it has so much space to sort of wander your mind about, and you can look at this image for so long, but yet it has that power. So negative space is such a beautiful tool to work with in photography. Negative space, again we will talk more about it. I just want to give an overview: shapes, composition, and for my 180 class we have talked about composition to the death, so we'll just quickly give an overview about composition, and then so on, we'll move on. All right, I want us to look at this differentiation, and then I want all of us to go on discussion forums and sort of talk about this. So this is my analysis between photo for sale and photo for art. So something that you sell is fact-based, tells you exactly what's happening. Photo for art is mood-based, doesn't tell you exactly what's going to happen. Again, I could be wrong, but this is what I've seen. And when I say photo for selling, I mean that like stock images, like commercial images that you just sell. I know a lot of artists also sell their work, that's very abstract, but I'm not talking about that specific case. Anyhow, go through all these points, and then I'll put a discussion form, and I would love to know your opinions about this. Alrighty, we have two videos here. I also want you guys to look at these two videos, and also I'll create a discussion form on your brief analysis of what do you think about these two videos that I've put on this course slide. There's a little recap from 180. Please go over them. I've also posted these photo rules on my Blackboard, some guidelines. Let me just reiterate them real quick. First, always shoot in RAW. My 180 student already know I want us to shoot in RAW file format. Go on your camera, change your settings, just shoot always on RAW. Make sure that your camera lens is set in manual focus, that is MF, not AF, so that you can control your focus on your camera lens. Make sure you have 3x3 grid lines. Make sure that your circular tiles are always on manual mode. Make sure that you know how the buttons to sort of move between LCD and viewfinder lookout, and also you should know how ISO, f-stop, and shutter speed work, and how you can change them on the cameras. I'm putting all the videos for the basic setup on my Brightspace, so people can sort of reacquaint themselves with basics of digital photography. Anyhow, I want to quickly also talk about the strategies for composition, which is rule of thirds, balance and symmetry, leading lines, depth of field, nature and architecture, negative space. Again, I feel that I have talked about it to death in 180 course, and I'm sorry that if you haven't taken that course, but I will definitely will go through them again in one of our composition based classes. But I have put these here just in case, so people can sort of go over them. And then I talk about photo composite, which is from my MEDA 110 class, and the photo composite is actually essentially, the idea is, which I've already talked about, is it is definitely about, it is a media art, but the idea is that you actually source different elements from different pieces and combine them together, as you can see in this photo composite images. As you can see with the overview, it's not about overwhelming any of you. I'm just want to show you this course slide, and you can go on this on your own. I just want to sort of acquaint you with the things and the themes that we'll be working with. So the themes is media art, photo art, negative space, triptychs, photo composites, compositions, and then creating digital surrealism like this, having a lot of fun with different images and combining them to create something that is whimsical, that's dreamy, that's out of this world. That is what surrealism is, and we will go over it. Alrighty, so now we have come to the point that I want you also have to do a Photoshop exercise. So you'll be doing a photography exercise. That is, you can go over on my Open Lab 1 instructions. And for your project 1, I would be expecting that you use Photoshop and create these 3 experiments. Pretty simple, and there is a tutorial video as well that I've recorded for MEDA 110 class that I'll be sharing here. So week 1 retrospective for MEDA 110 and retrospective for VA 180, and from next week onwards we will jump into very specific 280 based exercises. All right, thank you so much. I hope this overview was helpful rather than overwhelming. I feel that the idea with this 280 class is to merge photography and photo manipulation together. All right, thank you so much.